right. So the last thing that we sort of finished up with when we were here on Wednesday was we talked about creating new views and adding those views to sheets, and then we talked about printing, which was really kind of a big topic. And let me open up, I'm going to open up our project here so I have that open. And I'm going to open up chapter 8 of our course manual as well, which is on Canvas at least now. And we've got a lot of good annotation here. Let's get rid of some of those things. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to open up chapter 8. Okay. And I'm just going to breeze through again, creating new views, how to add views to a sheet, how to create a sheet, and then I want to show you how to create several different types of new views, right? Because last time we talked about creating floor plan views, really, but there's a lot of other views you can generate. So you can generate building sections, you can create elevations, interior elevations, you can create enlarged floor plans, right? There's a lot of different things that we can generate. So I want to go over that. Before I do that though, I'm going to create a couple of interior walls here. And interior walls. These are not going to be beautiful like your project, but we'll do something here. Here we go, that looks good. Maybe we have something here-ish. Okay, looks pretty good to me. All right, so first thing, I'll just go over duplicating a view and then adding that view to a sheet. So, it looks like I didn't save this, or maybe I wasn't even working in this file last time. Which may be a better reason why it didn't work. But that's good because now we can create sheets from scratch and we won't know the difference. Okay. So I want to create a new sheet, and to create a new sheet I'm going to come down here to Sheets, I'm going to right click and choose New Sheet, right? Another way of going about it, which is kind of the long way, would be to come up here to the View tab and then go all the way over here to Sheet and click on that. Okay, it does the same thing. So if I right click and I choose New Sheet, Revit's going to say, hey, that's great, you want to create a new sheet. What size of title block would you like to put on it? And by default, we only have one available. That's a 30 by 42, which is, I would say in general, probably not the size of title block you want. That's fairly large. So we need to find different size of title block. So I'm going to click on Load. And this is our family library. This is an inherent library of items that is in Revit, contained within Revit, out of the box. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and I have a title block folder. I'm going to click, and there are all of the other sizes of title blocks we have available to us. So I'm going to click on a couple, the 22 by 34, hold Control, click on 11 by 17. Those are the two I'll want, and I'm going to hit Open. Okay, so by clicking Open, what I've just done is I've loaded those into the project, right? Which in AutoCAD would be similar to inserting them into the project, okay? Whichever one of these title blocks I choose will be applied to the new sheet that I generate, okay? So I'm going to click on 22 by 34, hit OK, and I have just created a new sheet. So if I come down here and I open up my little sheet menu, I have A101 unnamed. All right. If I click on that title block, I can look over here and see that I have 22 by 34 horizontal, right? So that shows me, that this is the right size here. All right. We learned last time that, so these title blocks are actually families. It's an annotation family, and the annotation family, it has smart information attached to it, essentially, right? So we know that there's some smart information here that if I carefully enter it will sort of follow and coordinate itself through the project. So for example, the owner, if I click on that, I could put my name. And then the next sheet that I generate, my name will be in that same place. Revit also has some areas in these title blocks where the information follows it, you know, from sheet to sheet, but it also recognizes that sometimes that doesn't need to happen, right? So things that are going to be unique, like the name of the sheet, right? I can put it in here, and then on the next sheet it prompts me to change it. All right, I'm going to come down here to A101. We can change that to AE101, and looks pretty good, right? We can fill in all this other information, okay? And in your assignment, I'm going to ask you to fill this in, but really more so to just make it up and fill it in, right? So you can make up a project number. You can make up who it's checked by. You can make up a project name. So we'll just do SLCC remodel. There we go. Okay, so now I have my sheet here, but it doesn't have a view on it, so I want to add a view. So I'm going to go back to one of the views in my project, right? And I can add any type of view to a sheet. I can add floor plans, elevations, section, details. Those are all views of the model, and they can all go onto a sheet. So the way that we're going to put a view onto a sheet, I'm going to click and I'm going to hold that view in my project browser, drag it over, let go, and click. Now you're going to see that I didn't really do any kind of fine tuning to my view before I placed it on my sheet. It's larger than it should be. It's not the right scale. And my view title is all the way down here, right? I'm seeing elevation markers that extend beyond the drawing board here, right? I can go back to my actual view, level 1, click, click, and I can help that. I can clean it up a little bit, right? So I can come down here and turn on my little crop region, show crop region, right? And you can see that when I placed this on the sheet, that was sort of the viewport that it used to place it. So that's why it looks so large on the sheet, right? I can click on my crop region, and I can drag it in very close to my drawing, and that helps some. Looks pretty good, right? I can also zoom in here, and I can click on some of my grids. These look like they're locked. And I could drag some of those in if I need to make them a little bit closer. We'll have to unlock all these. Let's grab them all at the same time and unpin them. Okay. But I can grab my, see, over-constrained. Why don't I learn my lesson, right? Do it one by one. Looks good, and they're also pinned. So these were pinned and they were locked. Sort of over-constrained it, which made it harder to move them in. Okay, but now they've all been freed up, and now I can drag them kind of nicely in. And because we're in Revit, right, everything follows suit when I bring it in. It's wonderful. Very nice, right? Okay. I can bring my crop region in just a little bit more. Looks great. I think I might even bring my grids in down here. Well, those are all, that's too much work for tonight, right? Unpinning and unlocking everything. We'll just leave it as is. All right, so that looks pretty good, right? If I wanted to include my elevation markers, I could have selected them and I could have dragged them in, right? Placed them where I wanted them to go. That's completely valid. Looks pretty good. Okay. So my crop region is showing, of course. I can turn it off by clicking on hide crop region right there. And it turns off. The other thing I can do is change the scale of this if I want. It's at 1/4 of an inch right now. If I wanted to change it to a smaller scale, 1/8 of an inch, right, I could do that. I'd have to change my annotation a little. So I'm actually going to leave it at 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to hope that by bringing everything in so it's nice and snug, that it will fit on my page. Okay, I'm going to go back to my sheet. Looking a little bit more appropriate, right? I can click on it. I can nudge it with my arrows down, and I can get it to sit very nicely on my page. Looks pretty good, right? Now my view title, of course, I can come down, click on it, hold my mouse, drag it up into place. But it's still too large. It's extending beyond my drawing too far, right? So I can click on it and nothing happens. And if you remember, the key to this is clicking on the viewport, and that grip highlights, and now I can drag it in, right? So this is a little bit weird. It's a weird workflow, but as long as you just kind of know what is happening, it'll work just fine for you. But essentially, if I click on the viewport, I'm allowed to alter the length, right? And I can use my arrows, but it nudges the whole drawing. If I hit escape and I just click on the view title, I can nudge it and move it with my arrows. And I can also click with my mouse and I can move that where I want it to go. Okay. All right. So we've created our new sheet. We have tailored our view to fit on that sheet. One thing I want to remind you is that I'm going to open up this little plus sign underneath my floor plan sheet. One thing I want to remind you is that once I have assigned a view to a sheet, it's locked out, right? Which means that I can't take level 1 and put it on another sheet. Revit won't allow me to do that. And it won't allow me to do that because now this coordinate, number 1 on AE 101 is now been assigned to this floor plan. So if I wanted to put it on sheet 102, right, if I ever had to reference it, Revit would get confused, right? It wouldn't be able to very accurately tell me where that is. And so Revit sort of locks it out and the system works, okay? But there are going to be times when you need to use level 1 for something else other than just showing what we have shown here. This could be just a regular old floor plan for level 1, right? But what if I want to show a floor plan with furniture on it, right? Furniture floor plan, or a furnishings floor plan, sorry. Or what if I want to show a floor plan with the finishes on the floor, like where does the tile go? Where does the carpet go, right? I'm still going to need to use the architecture of level 1, but I'm just going to have to visually turn things on and off to show what I want to show. So I can right click over level 1. I can choose duplicate with detailing, right? We talked about these last week. And I get an exact copy of level 1. All right. Now if I wanted to, I could maybe take the grids, maybe select a bunch of things, and I could right click, hide in view elements, and turn those things off, right? Or I could take those dimensions and delete them. Take all of this text and delete it, right? I could turn my crop region back on, and I could bring it out a little and bring these elevation markers in, because maybe on this drawing it matters if I see them. It's really far out there. Okay. There we go. And then I'm going to bring my crop region back in so that it doesn't mess up me placing it on a sheet. Okay, so I've kind of visually manipulated this view differently than I did the first view, right? I've turned things off. I have deleted a few things, right? But the architecture still stayed the same, because the things that I turned on and off, I visually did it, or I deleted things that were view specific. So if I go back to level 1, you'll see level 1 remains untouched, and the copy I made that I altered is the way that I left it, right? I can right click and choose rename. Let's call this level 1 furniture plan. Great, so now I have level 1 and level 1 furniture plan. Okay, and now I can take that same floor plan view with different things showing and place that on a sheet. So I'm going to create another new sheet, right click, new sheet, choose my title block, which is easy, hit OK. And now this is 102. We can zoom in here. The client's name is here. The name of the project is still here, but Revit is smart enough to know that this sheet is called something different. So I can click on that and I can call this furniture plan, right? And that works out very nicely. Okay, and just to prove it, we go to A101, floor plan, right? All right. So now I'm going to grab my furniture plan, click and hold, drag it over. And because I was very thoughtful about how it looked before I put it on the sheet, I click and it sits very nicely on the sheet. Everything looks really great. Okay. So we can do this with any type of view, all right? And one thing that I think is a little, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Sorry, I'm going to come back to it. Any type of view. So if I create another sheet, right click new sheet, hit OK. This one we'll call exterior elevations. Right? I can name it AE 201. I can drag my elevations onto this sheet. Again, I go to like my north, let's go my north elevation. I want to make sure that everything is nice and neat, which it's not, right? Some of these lines extend out past there. The grids aren't quite right, so I'm going to have to stop being lazy and probably unpin them all. Maybe I can do a shortcut. There we go. Okay. Ooh, what just happened? Deleted a few somehow. That looks pretty good. I've got oh, I've got one hanging out. There we go. And, oh boy, I'm gonna have to do this with every single one. Okay. There we go. Two more. One, two, there we go. Okay. So now I'm going to grab, oh, that little guy was hanging out. I can grab these and I can drag them up nicely, right? And I can grab my levels and I can kind of nicely bring those in and match that one. Oop. You just kind of do what you need to do to get them looking the way you want them to, right? Bring that in. Bring these in a little bit. It's just so easy to get them to line up that why not, right? Why not do it? So looks pretty good. All right. Okay. So time to place this on a sheet, right? So I'm going to go over to my elevation sheet and I'm going to grab my north elevation, drag it over, let go, place it, everything looks good, right? So we'd have to do the same thing to get north, east, southwest looking the way we want it, but just for the sake of time, I'll just pull over a few probably untidy elevations, right? One thing you're going to notice is that as I drag these over, you see how they will line up at the midpoint. See that snap that I get, which is wonderful. And if I'm really good, oh, it's aligning my titles, but sometimes if you're pretty good at getting the snap to work, you can get it to align at the midline vertically as well. But there's my south, there's my west, there you go. Okay, so I've now placed those all on a sheet. Of course, I can come down here to my sheets, open up this, and I can see where how all the different views are working. Okay, what happens if I want to take a view off of a sheet? Well, I can click on it. Oops. Click on it and hit delete. Oops. Delete. Gone. Doesn't delete the drawing. What was that, the east one? East is still there. I can still double click on it. It's still there, right? But it's just been removed from the sheet, right? I'm going to undo that real quick. I could also, if I wanted to move it, I could grab east down here. See under the actual sheet. I could drag it over here to AE 101. You see that? I get a little arrow plus a plus sign. Let go. And Revit acts as if I want to place it on the sheet. I click and I place and it goes onto the sheet. So very easy to remove views off a sheet, very easy to move them. And so I'm going to hit undo on that one. I'm going to go back to my exterior elevations, undo again because, oh, redo. I did one too many times. There we go. And I've got everything on the sheet as I need it. Any questions about sheets or adding views to sheets? Not terrible so far, right? What happens if I didn't load a title block that I actually want, right? And I don't want to go through the sheet interface to find it. I'm going to show you kind of a standard way to insert different things into your project, okay? And this is going to be something you'll use for other items as well. But if I want to insert things into my project, like title blocks or other families, I can also go to the insert menu here, and we've got a lot of different options for inserting. We can insert CAD files, we can insert other Revit files, we can insert views from other files, we can insert images. It's really helpful when you're creating a cover sheet that needs a map on it. And we have load family here, right? So under insert, we have load family. And if I click on load family, it browsed to title blocks because that's where I was last. But usually it browses to the Imperial library here, right? So I can go and find whatever I need in these folders. Okay, so I'm actually going to go to title block. And maybe we want the 8.5 by 11. I hit open and it loads it in. Okay, so now if I wanted to use that 8.5 by 11, I could select my title block, drop down 8.5 by 11, and it changes it, right? This is a pretty good illustration right here of you need to pick and place the right size title block on your page first before you do anything else. Because if I say in an assignment, use the 22 by 34 inch title block to create your sheet, right, and lay it out, and you accidentally go to create a new sheet and only the 30 by 42 is available, which is much larger than the 22 by 34, right? And you place it on your sheet and you arrange everything, and then at the last minute you realize, oh, I placed that title block is way too big. I misplaced, or I placed the wrong size. Well, then you change it, and the second one is a lot smaller. Then you have all of these viewports that no longer fit on your title block because they've been sized according to that size of page, right? So make sure that you are putting the right size title block on your page, which how much easier can it get than that, right? Not easier in AutoCAD. All right, so views, we know how to place views, we know how to duplicate views. Let's talk about creating some other types of views, right? Any questions on any of this so far? Not terrible stuff. And when I say creating other types of views, at this moment I want to talk about creating things like building sections and enlarged floor plans, right? And details, okay? Different types of drawings that you'll use in your construction drawing set, all right? So I'm just going to go back to my level 1 floor plan here. For really no other reason than I just have one, honestly, right? And I'm going to bring these down just a tiny bit. Okay. And I think the first kind of view that we're going to generate is going to be a sectional view, all right? How do we draw building sections in Revit? And I'm going to show you how to do this, but before I do, I just want to give you a little warning that we haven't put a lot of stuff in our models yet, right? We're heading into how to create more geometry. So we're going to be learning how to create floors pretty soon, how to create roofs, and we're going to move actually really rather quickly through them. But we don't have that stuff created yet. So my model looks like this, right? Which is not totally accurate, of course. So just know that when you create your building sections and different things that you're going to generate just to have practice, they won't look quite right, okay? So I'm going to come over here to view, okay, and you're going to see that under the create panel here, tool palette, we have a lot of different types of things we can generate. So we have 3D views, we have sections, we have couple of different types of callouts. We have plan views, so floor plan, reflected ceiling plan. We also have elevations here. We have drafting views, and really those are kind of going to be the sampling of views that Revit has to offer. All right. So a sectional view, which you may notice that we also have a sectional tool up here in the quick access toolbar. It creates a building section, okay, which is a vertical cut of a building. So a floor plan cuts the top of the building off and you view downward into the building. And a section is if you take a project and you cut it vertically and open it on a hinge. You can view the construction vertically of the project, okay? So I'm going to click on section, And you'll notice over here under properties, we have building section highlighted. Okay, I have wall section available and detail available. And those are all going to be details and wall sections that have sectional quality, essentially. So I'm going to leave it at building section right now. And to draw a building section, it's as easy as clicking, moving through the project where you want that section to happen, and clicking a second time. And you have your building section generated, right? For those of you that took AutoCAD and had to draw kind of that quasi building section for the final, right? How tough was that? It was pretty tough. This does it in seconds, right? It's so quick. Now I can click on that building section, and you notice we have the head where all of the location information occurs. So if it's on, detail number 1 on sheet AE 101, it shows there, of course, right? We have this blue dashed region to the right, and this blue dashed region shows the extent of the building section. So essentially, if we were to read this building section, it's been drawn at this point through the project, and it's cutting right there, but it's looking this direction. So we are capturing everything over here. All right. This little grip right here, if I click on it, this will allow me to change my field of vision. All right. So here I would see like these 2 doors, and I would get a cut here. These, I would move past that and just see it cut here. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. All right, so one thing you may have or may not have noticed over here in our project browser now is that we have sections showing up here, right? I can double click on the head of this section, or I can double click over here and I can click, and I can get to my building section, right? I'm going to change my coarseness to a fine coarseness level so I see a little bit more detail in my objects, right? But essentially what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing level 1, and I'm seeing level 2, and I'm seeing all the way to what would probably be called our roof at this point, right? We don't have any floors in, of course. We don't have a roof on. We're not seeing any of that stuff just yet, but we will eventually. This looks like it defaulted to 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot for the scale, but we can change that, right? I can click on these grids and I can change them or move them just like I would in any other view. So I'm going to do that real quick here, right? I can grab my grids, zoom in, drag them in. Looks great. My crop region is shown, so I can drag that in if I want. I can also kind of snug those up a little bit. It looks pretty good though, right? For drawing a building section, that took me about 8 seconds, of course, which would have taken me a lot more time in AutoCAD. I'm going to turn off my crop region, and there's my building section. I can change my view style to an SD, which is shaded, so I can get a better look at it, right? But I'm seeing my door cut through, I'm seeing the striations of my wall, I'm seeing interior walls, I'm seeing everything that I need to see, right? Now I'm going to WT window tile these so I can see them at the same time. And I'm going to show you what happens when I move my section or I change the extent of the view range, right? So I can drag this in. Watch my building section kind of change, right? Because I'm cutting through here, but I'm not quite engaging this back wall, so I can't quite see it. You see my back wall starts to show back up, but nothing is showing beyond there, right? So Revit is very good at real-time indicating what we're able to see. If I want to move where this section happens, I can nudge it with my arrows. Oh, see, I hit a window right there. That little window. It's that little window right there. I'm going to bring my field division. You're starting to see things move and appear, right? And also a really nice feature of a Revit section is that if I want to see the other side, right, of my section, I can use my little flip section and it will show me the other side. So now instead of looking to the right, I'm looking to the left, right? And I'm seeing a whole different picture over here. Very, very nice, right? All right. So that's how we generate building sections. And building sections can be placed on sheets as well. So I'm going to right click, new sheet, choose my sheet size, hit OK. And this one, we'll call it AE 301. And we'll call this a building section. Looks great. And I'm going to grab my building section one, drag it over, let go, place it on my sheet. Looks wonderful. Click over here, or I just have to click once actually over here. HL, hidden line, and it updates. All right, I'm just going to nudge this little guy over a bit, because the next thing that I'm going to show you how to generate is a wall section. Okay, and a building section is probably best placed in a floor plan, right? And I'm going to go back to my floor plan view here real quick, talk about that, because I can run them all the way through my building this direction. I can run one in the opposite direction if I wanted to, right? And generally the intent with a building section is to show the overall construction of the project. So we're showing how tall levels are, where the floor intersects with the wall, right? Where the foundation system is happening, where the roof comes in and touches the top of the wall, where the doors and windows happen, right? And structural connections. So those big building sections are giving us an overall picture of what that building looks like. Okay. The next section that we're going to generate is going to be called a wall section. And a wall section is generally best generated inside the building section, because we're going to be taking a closer look at our wall section here. All right. So these next couple of views that I generate, we go from the very broad overall building section to a more detailed wall section to a then extremely detailed detail, right? So we have these levels of detail that we build up to as we move through the drawing. So as I am in my building section here, I'm going to go up to view again. Okay. I'm going to come to, I'm going to go to section again, but I'm going to change my section here to a wall section. Okay, so I have wall section chosen, and I'm going to click, and I'm just going, oh, nope, sorry, you guys, sorry, I led you astray, I'm going to go to a call out, sorry, and I'm going to circle in I'm going to encircle my wall section while I'm in my building section. Okay, and I'll talk about in a second why I changed my mind here. Call out, rectangle, okay, and I'm going to click once, drag my cursor over my wall section, click, and I just placed my wall section here. Okay. I can click and hold my little grip on this little head bubble marker. I'm going to put it kind of out here in space. I can click on this and I can sort of drag it up, drag it in a little bit, right? It looks pretty good. And now you're going to notice down here I not only have building section, but I have wall section right here, right? So I open up my wall section, and there's my section 1 call out right there. It's lovely, right? Okay, now if I click, double click on that wall section, let's close these out here. Sorry, I keep going over here because that's where the closeout's been for like 8 years. So I'm not quite used to that yet. Okay, so now I have my wall section, right? And I get a little bit more detail, or I will eventually. I am seeing things at a larger scale. This is a 1/2 inch instead of a 1/4, right? The scale essentially is double what it was with a 1/4 inch. And the intent with the wall section is that you're going to see a higher level of detail than you would in an overall building section, right? So we go from broad to very detailed views, all right? I'm going to turn off my crop region. And this view is also going to go on a sheet. So I'm just going to put it very nicely next to my building section. You can see it's being called out there. Click, drag it over, click, let go, there it is, very nice. I'm going to move it over because I'm going to put a little bit more on this page if it will fit. But now you can see we go from very broad, there's not a ton of detail, to where there would be a lot more detail here. All right. The final view we're going to do is some detail views. All right, so I'm going to go back to my building section, which is, or sorry, wall section, which is here. And now I want to get even more detailed, right? I can see where the door is, I can see the wall striations, but I really want to know how the head of that door is working. I really want to know how this meets the foundation. And I really want to know how this top portion is working, okay? And I think I'm actually going to go back to my building section. I'm going to go back to my floor plan. And these all coordinate. And I want this to go through a door and a window. Okay, so you see how I moved it over so it hits the door and it hits the window there. Close that out. Hits the door, hits the window, and in my wall section I see my door appear. Right? So my next step is I want to add some detail to this wall section. So I'm going to go to my wall section and I'm going to add some more callouts. Okay, call out, rectangle, and I'm just going to grab these conditions, click, click, and encircle what I want to see. So call out, rectangle, maybe I want to see that door head, right? And call out, rectangle, the wall base. All right, I try to keep the little head bubbles kind of on the same side. We don't want those overlapping, so I'm going to drag them up. There you go. And now I have 1, 2, 3 detail views, okay? And these are sectional details right now. And so they are still appearing under wall section, even though I'm calling them a detail. They're a detail of the wall section, so in this case it kind of groups them together, okay? So call out, section 1, call out 1, call out 1. It's kind of a confusing name. So I'm going to right click and rename this detail 1, enter. Right click, rename, oops, detail 2, enter. Right click, rename, detail 3, enter, right? So we have now, instead of those being called those generic names, detail 1, 2, and 3. And I want to, of course, then place them on a sheet, right? Before I do that, just from me knowing, okay, I'm going to look at that detail. You see how now, because it's been defined as a detail, Revit knows it needs to bump up scale. So instead of 1/2 inch is equal to a foot, right? Now we have 1 inch is equal to a foot. That's a scale, because we're going to be seeing more things on this object, okay? So I go back down to my sheet. Hopefully I have enough room to put this on my building section title block here. I may not, but we'll try. Detail 1. Oh, it's looking promising, right? And you'll notice that the second I place it here, I get a call out coordination. It's heaven. It's heaven, people. Detail number 2, drag it over, click, looks wonderful. Detail number 3, look how nicely these line up. Makes me so happy. Click, there we go. This one is a little bit out of an alignment, so I'm going to drag it over so that it somewhat aligns with that. Drag this little guy over a little bit. There we go. Might have to move that over a tiny bit so those titles don't overlap, right? But how easy is it to now sort of format my page, right? That would have taken a lot not a long time, but a lot longer in AutoCAD, right? Because I'd probably have to draw a few lines in order to get everything to line up on my page. So now I look here and I will have an even more detailed view. Now, let me show you in actuality. I'm just going to show you a couple quick views. So we're going to type in architectural building section, right? So a building section with some detail is going to look somewhat like this, right? We're going to see walls, we're going to see structural elements, you're going to see, you know, little beams running across here. We're going to see kind of general construction methods. Ooh, fancy, huh? These have little people in them even. But we're going to see a lot of detail happening, right? So general overall detail, we see the ceiling hanging down, we see the levels in relation to one another. Architectural building wall section. here's where we actually get a lot more construction detail, right? So the other image we saw showed general overall conditions, but this building wall section, we're seeing where the insulation is, we're seeing where the building systems are happening, where the floors are coming in here, right? We're seeing lots of notes describing items. We're seeing where the ground level comes in. We're seeing the foundation, the slab, the drain. We're seeing a lot more construction detail, right? So we've stepped up from that overall building section. And finally, we're going to get to building wall detail. Finally, we get to the most detailed of the details, right? And that will be a wall detail. So something maybe more like this, where you're zoomed in as close as you're going to get. You're seeing connections, you're seeing studs, you're seeing insulation, you're seeing maybe how the panel system is working, right? But this is going to give you the highest level of detail. And so that is kind of where we have headed with these 3 different drawings. Broad, middle ground, extremely detailed, okay? Now, you're looking at this and you're thinking, I don't see any detail, right? But we just don't know how to get it there yet, essentially. The footprint has been placed there, and what we would do as we finish up our drawings is we would add what are called detail components, right? So we would add the insulation, we'd add the notes, we'd add the dimensions, we'd add the studs, we'd add all of that detail in there to convey for build, right? Without getting, hi David, without getting too detailed, I'll just pop my favorite detail item in here, which is the insulation, right? If anybody's ever tried to put insulation in a wall in AutoCAD, right? You got to line a bunch of little blocks up, unless you find a fancy little.
Do it in the detail, it doesn't do it in the section, and then it doesn't do it in there. It's just the detail.
It's just the detail, yeah. So that's good and bad, right?
If you do it opposite, it'll do it.
No.
No.
Okay. So detail components,
Drawings,
they're
when you change these, they're their own identity.
right, exactly, because you want different detail level on them, right? But in the case where you say, well, yeah, but I want insulation in my wall section and, my building section, whatever, you can grab these, and there's, I can Control-C copy that. And then if I wanted, I could come over here to my wall section. There's a really nice paste option in Revit where I can go to Modify Now, and I can choose Paste, Aligned to Current View, and it will paste that object in the exact same spot. So I can even though when I'm drawing detail, I'm drawing it in one spot, if I want to transfer it to multiple places very quickly, I can then select those, copy them, paste them to the exact same spot on another drawing. And because this is an identical view of that, they'll go into the exact same spot, essentially. All right, so we have our different views created. There are a couple other views I want to show you how to generate tonight. One's going to be an enlarged floor plan, and the next is going to be interior elevations, right? And then I'm going to very quickly show you how to add some simple components so that you actually have things to show in your elevations, right? Because we don't have things in our drawings right now like toilets or furniture or anything that you'd see in an elevation, essentially. Okay, typical me, I like to prepare. I know that I'm going to create some enlarged floor plan sheets, and I know that I'm going to create some interior elevation sheets. So before I generate those views, I just like to create the sheets to place them on. So I'm going to hit OK here, and I'm going to make this one AE401 interior elevations. Great. Took me all of 8 seconds. And I have to go find an XREF, right? Right click, new sheet, and we'll call this AE402 enlarged floor plans. Great. Okay. One other sheet I'm going to generate tonight too. I'm going to create a cover sheet. So right click, new sheet, and we'll create a cover sheet. So I'll show you how to go about that. Cover sheet. You can just make sheets all day long. Eventually, when we get a little bit further, I'm going to show you how to get rid of this terrible nuisance right here. Does anybody else hate the timestamp? I don't want my clients knowing what time I printed their drawings, right? Does anybody else? No. I don't even know why. I mean, I know why they put it on there, right? To what issue date you have, but that's nobody's business, I feel like. I just like them to be out nicely on the table, like they've been sitting there for, hours waiting. Okay. So now I'm going to go back, and the first thing I'm going to do is an enlarged floor plan. Okay, so an enlarged floor plan, it's essentially it's a more detailed view of a floor plan. So we could compare it, to the building section. The floor plan is the overall building section. It shows generally what the architecture is doing. An enlarged floor plan, you bump up the scale, you zoom in, and you show additional detail. Okay, so a really good example of what an enlarged floor plan would be compared to. So let's see, architectural enlarged bathroom plan, right? We are going to enlarge things that have number one, like really special kind of requirements, like they need to be accessible, or their life safety issues, right? So if you have stairways, people are running from a fire, they need to get downstairs, very important piece of the puzzle. So enlarged floor, you would enlarge that stair plan to show that the stairs are the right width, they're the right height, the railings are in the right spots, and the landings are appropriate, right? Bathrooms are the same. It's not a life safety issue, but it's an accessibility issue. So you need to make sure that there is wheelchair clearance, that the toilets and urinals are at the correct height for accessibility, that the sinks have clearance so a wheelchair can maneuver in, or a person who has a challenge with regards to accessibility can reach them. Or the door opens appropriately so people can enter and exit the restroom, right? So kitchens are another example of enlarged floor plans. So you can show where millwork is, you can show where the stove and the sink and important appliances go, okay? But an enlarged floor plan would be something like this, where you're just going to show that special portion of the floor plan, right? When you're new interns, you'll be drawing plenty of these, showing where grab bars are and where toilets go. It's wonderful practice. All right, so my floor plan doesn't have a lot going on just yet, of course, unfortunately. But if it did, if it had some nice restrooms in there, those would be things that I'd likely be highlighting, okay? Or the kitchen, if you need to create an enlarged kitchen floor plan, you'd still follow the same procedure. But the nice thing about Revit is that I can get these views in here rather early, anticipating that I'm going to be adding toilets, I'm going to be adding millwork, and know that once the view is created and those elements are added, the view will update itself, right? They automatically update with whatever you put in there, which is really great. So to create an enlarged floor plan, I'm going to go to my floor plan view here, okay? And I'm going to go to annotate. No, I'm going to view. I'm going to go to view. I'm going to go to my good call out here. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, use call out to do a detail as well, right? The call out is somewhat generic, and it defines itself according to what view I place it in. So if I place that call out on a section, it calls it a section. If I place that call out on a floor plan, it calls itself a floor plan, okay? So I click on call out, rectangle, and again, I just sort of encircle that area that needs to be enlarged. And there's my enlarged floor plan, right? I click on this, and I can see over here in my properties, it says it's a floor plan. I can cruise down here a little bit, and the view is called level 1 call out 1. It does, unless I do something a little bit different, which we're not going to do just yet, it does sort itself under floor plans, right? So I can right click, rename, I can call this level 1 enlarged floor plan. Okay. Now I'm going to double click and go to that view, and there's my enlarged floor plan. It still shows the grids, it still shows the section, it still shows the openings, right? It's showing all the architectural information, but you'll notice that instead of being at 1/4 of an inch, it's at 1/2 inch, right? So a lot more detail is going to be shown, okay? So here's my enlarged floor plan. One thing I do want to point out here, let me open up my floor plan. window tile these, is that this outline right here, okay, is my crop region in the view. So if I move this line out, did you see that line move out? So if I wanted to kind of fine tune this once I got in the view, maybe I wanted to show the doors a little bit more, right? I can start to do that kind of thing in here, and it updates over here in the view. Okay. So there's my enlarged floor plan, and of course I'm going to place this on a sheet. I go to my enlarged floor plan, I click on my enlarged floor plan here, drag it over, place it where it needs to be, and there it is. Okay, I'm going to drag these out just a little here. I think it's a little bit confusing to have my browser, I mean, you get that I have my browser down below and my properties, right? But I think it might be kind of nice just to see them separate for a second. All right, so there's my enlarged floor plan, okay, and I can do that with anything. Now I go back to my enlarged floor plan, and there is actually one more level of detail I can add to my enlarged floor plan, just like a building section, right? So with floor plans, we have floor plan, enlarged floor plan, and plan detail, right? Building sections, we have overall building section, wall section, and wall section details, essentially. So I can also now come in and say, well, I want a call out, and if I needed to detail this door jamb here, I could add a plan detail. Okay, this little plan detail shows up here. Enlarged floor plan, call out 1. Right click, rename it, plan detail 1. And Revit is smart enough to know that because I placed this detail on a plan view, okay, that when I click on it, the scale is again bumped up, right? So it's 1 inch is equal to a foot, and I could add detail components to this to make the detail even a higher level than it currently is. So I'm going to go to enlarged floor plans. I can grab my plan detail, and we'll put it up here. There we go. I have my detail. And the nice thing, again, the second I place it, it is tagged right there, which is wonderful.
So
all
why
right.
are you doing this so early before you place toilets and bathtubs? Because now wouldn't you have to do it in both?
No.
Wait, they're in there.
So toilets are an actual component. It's an architectural element. So if I place it here, it'll show up in any view that it's created.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just detail items that don't show up. So text, dimensions, and detail components. Yeah, everything else will show up. The nice thing about this is that when you're working through a project like this, we like to sort of put a cartoon set together really early so that so-and-so's working on details, so-and-so's doing enlarged plans, so-and-so's doing floor plans, so you can get all the work out there, and then everybody can go to their respective parts and begin working. And then as, you know, maybe the project manager adds details and move things around, people can still continue to work as you're developing the set, which is a lot more difficult in AutoCAD, right? All right, so we'll do one more set of views, and then I'll show you how to add some components, and we'll call it a night. I'm going to show you how to add some interior elevations, okay? Interior elevations are somewhat different from floor plans and sections in that you can really add them to any sort of view, all right? Meaning they're not specifically slated for like an enlarged floor plan, for example. You can place them in a enlarged floor plan only, but they may not be sort of specific to that view, okay? So I'm going to place an interior elevation marker right here in the enlarged floor plan, but we could put it anywhere. And to achieve that, I'm going to click on elevation, okay? Now you're going to notice that building elevation pops up first. So I could, if I happen to lose one of my elevations on accident, which probably happens more than you think, right? I could go around and I could add a new building elevation. Great. If I want to create an interior elevation, I drop down here and I go to interior elevation. Okay. The tag is a little bit different, right? than the exterior elevation. And you notice that as I hover towards a wall, it sort of says, hey, look at that, something to look at, right? So I'm going to click and place it, and I've just generated my first interior elevation. Okay, you're going to notice that when I click and I place, I get a little elevation line that sort of designates where that elevation is showing. Okay, and if I look over here, the interior elevations actually do schedule themselves outside of the elevations, all right, which is pretty nice. If I click on that marker, the actual round part of the marker, this piece, you'll notice that I have these little check boxes, and as I check, oh my gosh, it's generating interior elevations like crazy. The interior designers should be going nuts right now, right? Have you ever been a new intern and had to generate like 400 interior elevations in AutoCAD? It's maddening. But look at that. You just come in here and you click on these and it generates all of your interior elevations automatically. At least the architectural part of it, the structure, right? You still have to note, you still have to add detail, but that general outline is there, which is amazing. So I double click on 1A and there's my interior elevation. 1B, right? And this is with no cleanup, of course. They're pretty blank. We don't have a lot in there. 1C and then 1D. Looks wonderful. Okay. And of course, I can place these on sheets. So I go to my interior elevation sheet and 1A, very nicely place it. 1B, right? 1C. I like to place these, see how the midline is lining up. I like the elevations to be on a line, and then I'll come back and line up their view titles. 1D. Okay. I know it's again one of those things, right, that seems kind of not as important, but you know how your drawings look says a lot about you, right? So making sure that things line up, making sure titles line up, making sure that grid lines are an appropriate distance from the architecture, making sure your level lines are an appropriate distance from the architecture, making sure that notes line up, right? Being meticulous and trying to keep your drawings as organized and as neat as possible is really important, right? So all things aside of readability, right? Your drawings need to be readable. Your drawings need to look nice. That's part of them being readable. People are paying a lot of money for drawings, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for these drawings at times, right? And when they look nice and neat and very professional, it's one thing, but when they look sloppy and messy and text overlaps and you can't read things and stuff isn't lined up on sheets, right? They tend to get a little fussy about that kind of stuff. And I don't blame them, right? It's our job to make these look great. All right, so everything looks really good, okay? And that's really all there is to interior elevations, right? One thing I do want to show you quickly is, I'm going to go to my floor plan, level 1 here. I can rename these. So these have very long names right now, but if I click, right click, rename, so we'll just call this number 1, and that's number 1. Right click, rename number 2. And this is view 2. So, and actually when you get a little bit, when you get more into Revit, you can customize these to get rid of that extra number, which we can do, but I'm just not going to do it today. Rename 3. Rename 4, so those long names go away, okay? But what is really amazing about this now is that I've placed these views on a sheet and they look wonderful, and I've got, you know, everything looking really great on my floor plan view. What happens when I add things like toilets and millwork and different things, right? Do they show up in my view? And of course they do, okay? I want you to all differentiate the idea of building elements from detail items, right? Detail items show up in the view they're placed in, right? Building elements show up in every view. So if I place a wall, it's a building element and it shows up in any view it's associated with. If I place toilets or millwork or cabinets or anything like that, those will also show up in any view they're placed in, okay? So how do we place those things? How do we find them? If I go to architecture here, okay, and I'm not going to show you how to load a lot of things. I just want to show you how to place basic items right now. There's a component button here, icon. I'm going to click on the down arrow. I can choose place a component. Okay. And the components that are available to me in the project are the ones I'm allowed to place. And if I look at my properties dialog box, desk is chosen. So if I hover over my project and I place a desk in my area here, which is supposed to be a bathroom, click. Look at that, my little desk. Isn't it wonderful? You guys aren't as excited as I get about those kind of things. It's wonderful. So it shows up in all the views that it should, right? And if I click on that and I move it about a little bit and I rotate it, right? Look how magical that is, for real. It shows it just as it should be. It saves so much work. It's amazing. So my little desk is in there and it looks wonderful, right? There's a lot of other components we can place. Right now, if I go to component, I only have a desk. And I don't understand why they chose these out-of-the-box ones they chose. So we have a desk, a muntin pattern, a parking stall, and some trees. Those are our most basic loaded families, right? You'd think maybe like a toilet, a dishwasher. No, we've got trees and parking, which is great. And a desk. Okay, so I'll very basically show you how to load some items, right? So that's how you place a component. Some components are defined to be placed on specific things. So like a desk, this one's very generic, but if some components won't quite go into your model, it's likely because they need to be placed on a floor and we don't have floors yet, right? Or they need to be placed on, I don't know, a roof, right? We don't have a roof yet. So sometimes they can be defined to be placed on special things. To load in a few different components to get fancy, right? We'll go to insert and you'll notice we have load family here, which is where we went to get our title blocks. Those are annotation families. But I click on load families and you'll notice that we also have things like doors. Hey, well, I can load doors through this project too. I can load furniture. I can load plumbing, right? Let's go to plumbing fixtures. Sometimes things are really hidden in odd places. Just be aware. But I can go to, we'll do some toilets. There's a 3D toilet. I hit open, and that's loaded into my project. Nothing really happened, but it's loaded. Okay, well, I'm going to load family, and I'm going to go back, and let's do bathtubs. I want a freestanding. There's a tub. I hit open. Looks good. Okay. I can click on my little desk, hit delete, and actually add some bathroom stuff to the bathrooms. So I'm going to add a wall. I'm going to show you another little fancy shortcut. If I wanted to create a wall, I could go up to the wall command and go the long route. I could also click on a wall that I want to copy, and I could choose create similar. This is going to be probably your most used command right here. Create similar will allow me to begin placing that identical element regardless of what it is. So it can be a toilet, a wall, it can be a door or a window, but I can click on like door and choose create similar. How much faster is that than going to DR, door, searching through a gigantic menu of doors, finding the door you want and then placing it, right? Even though you know you want to use this door, okay? I now have a wall right here, which again shows up in my interior elevations, and I'm going to start placing some toilets in here. So I'm going to go to architecture, and I'm going to go to component, and I'm going to choose my toilet first, my water closet, right? And spacebar rotates, right? We'll place a little toilet. Oh, magically it just shows up in our interior elevations, right? So when you are elevating bathrooms, you know, for accessibility, there's grab bars, there's toilets, there's toilet paper holders, there's toilet partitions available in families. You place them all, they show up where they need to go. Let's just add a couple. This is a family bathroom. I've got 3 nice little toilets right there, right? There we go. We'll place one. They're not going to show up on the other side, obviously, because, oh, I guess so, because it's cutting through the wall. My elevation goes all the way through the wall. So it is showing that toilet on the other side. Let's add a little bathtub in here. Component. And we'll go to freestanding tub. Hopefully we have enough room. Barely, maybe. There we go. We'll just move our little marker over a tiny bit. I'm trying to grab the round tab. There, I wanted to grab the actual marker itself and move things so it doesn't overlap, but I've got my little tub there, right? And it shows up in my interior elevations. It's wonderful. Okay. So lighting, switches, plumbing fixtures, countertops, millwork, furniture, people, cars, doors, windows, all families, all things you can find in the family library, right? You'll hear the term component and family, and it's kind of a Revit, not a problem, but they mean the same thing. Component, family, same thing, okay? So when it says place a component, that means place a family, essentially, all right? What other things can you do as, there's just so many components, right? Like I showed you here, load family, we've got just all of these different categories. There's appliances in here, but they're hidden. They're under specialty equipment, domestic. We'll go mid-range, right? Washer and dryer, stove. Look at all this stuff, right? Think about how much time it would take to find all these blocks, right? But you can place all those things as well. Okay. There's also another, and I'll just give you the name of it. There's a pretty good source online called Revit City. And Revit City has the thousands and thousands and thousands of families that you can download. So essentially you join Revit City, you can download and load them in just like you would from the family library, right? I think I may have saved my welcome, whoever this is. Is it me? Anyway, I don't know. Sometimes the login can be kind of finicky. But once you're logged in, you can go to downloads, right? And I could type in, oh look, somebody did a wind generator. Do it yourself type even. But I could type in things like couch. And on Revit City, how many thousands of couches do you want, right? There's a bunch of different styles. So we'll get to this a little bit later. I think if you wanted to add a bunch of furniture and things, you could, but likely you'll just be using the Revit library to do it. Okay. So I think this is a good stopping point, so we'll stop here. But I think that now you're going to have an assignment that I'm hopefully going to be posting soon. Sorry, guys. I was literally locked out of Canvas all weekend. I kept getting an CIS error login. But essentially for your assignment, which is in chapter 8, which is attached to your module here. So I at least have the module up so you can start the assignment. Here it is here. Oh shoot, is that not what I wanted to do? Let me go back to that. There we go. The last couple pages, of course, just like normal, are going to be the assignment, and I will just probably post that. Say, do the exercises on page 100 and whatever of the course manual. But your assignment will be to create some sheets. So create some new views and some new sheets in your project. So you're going to be creating some new floor plans, some building sections, some wall sections, some details, some interior elevations, of course. And right now they won't be very detailed, right? You somewhat know where we're heading, meaning if you wanted to add furniture to your floor plans, right? Beds and different things, you can. You have the cabin file to copy that. We talked about how to create all of these, and the assignment very literally step by step tells you how, right? Click on section, choose section, outline it, right? But you're going to be creating all of those views and creating sheets to accommodate them, essentially. So then you're going to put your views on your sheets. So here's a list of the sheets we're going to generate. So right click on sheets, new sheet, pick your title block, create your views, place your views, essentially. Okay. You can fill in all of this information, but you can make it up. Who's the owner? I don't know. Make up an owner's name. The project, the imbue cabin, and then the sheet name, floor plan, right? Okay. Any questions on any of this so far? I think between the video and this is really step by step. I'll answer any questions, of course, but I think that you should be able to generate all of these. Okay. And unfortunately, it's fall break this week, but unfortunately, we don't get any break with this class. But you'll have Thursday and Friday off to go hunting, maybe?
I started my new job today, so.
Oh, you did? Very nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get out this weekend. So.
Yeah? Where's your new job at?
Brighton Homes at the North Salt Lake.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good. You're construction management, right?
Yep.
So you're working in the office, like managing projects?
They wanted me to take over their warranty department, so.
Yeah.
Kind of in the office, kind of in the field. But
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's a good foot in the door. So.
Good. That's great.
I was talking to their architect today about.
Yeah.
Having him help me with this class, and playing around with AutoCAD and Revit and stuff. So.
I think that's great.